Imagine holding the power to command the tides, only to lose your grip on the sky and wake up a stranger in a city that doesn't care who you are. The moment Habaek hits the asphalt of modern-day Seoul, the rules of his existence completely change. He is a water god, stripped of his magic and his map home. He is stranded in a world of steel and concrete, suddenly as vulnerable to the harsh elements as any passerby. Yet, Habaek hasn't caught up to his new reality. He carries himself with the posture of a king, demanding service and bowing from confused commuters. To the people of Seoul, he isn't a deity. He's just a man in strange clothes, remarkably out of touch with how the world works. This disconnect highlights the reality of his divinity. Having never known a moment of need or a second of physical pain, Habaek has lived a life of total independence. In the Water Kingdom, his power meant he never considered the feelings of those beneath him, leaving him physically present but socially adrift. Soa is a psychiatrist drowning in the very real pressures of the 21st century. She was managing a failing practice and a mountain of debt, her days defined by a frantic effort to stay ahead of her creditors. Her world is built on the tangible and the pragmatic. When Habaek claims to be a god, she doesn't see a miracle. She sees a patient in need of a clinical diagnosis. She has no patience for myths, because myths don't pay the interest on a business loan. This visualizes the distance between them. These walls represent the different ways they protect themselves. Habaek uses his status to keep the world at a distance, while Soa uses her skepticism to guard against further disappointment. They are two people living in the same city, yet they inhabit different universes. Their collision is a harsh reminder that we often build our strongest defenses when we feel the most threatened. It takes a disruption to force us to look past the boundaries we set for ourselves. The disruption arrives in the form of the servant curse. This ancient decree dictates that Soa's family must serve the gods, a legacy she inherited but never believed in until Habaek appeared at her door. Habaek's survival on Earth depends on finding the sacred stones. These artifacts are his only ticket back to his throne, but without his powers, he can't even buy a meal, let alone track down mystical relics across a sprawling metropolis. Look at how the power shifts. The crown loses its weight, and the coin becomes the anchor. The god who once commanded the seas is now reliant on a mortal's spare change and a spare bedroom just to make it through the night. This reliance forces them into a shared life. They are no longer a master and a servant, but two people bound together by a mutual need to navigate a world that is failing both of them in different ways. It's a sobering realization for a deity. When you lose the ability to provide for yourself, you realize your identity was tied to your capacity to stay separate from others. Habaek begins to feel the weight of a physical body. He learns the persistent nag of an empty stomach, the way a cold wind cuts through a thin coat, and the exhaustion that sets in after a day of walking on pavement. Soa, meanwhile, finds her pragmatic world being torn apart. She is pulled into a realm of divine rivalries and hidden dangers, facing threats that her psychiatric training never prepared her to handle. These shared pressures act as a catalyst. When they are both cold, tired, or afraid, the labels of god and mortal start to lose their meaning. They are forced to see each other not as roles to be played, but as individuals trying to endure a difficult situation. Their relationship develops through these quiet, difficult moments. It's the act of sharing a meal when they're hungry, or offering a hand when the other is overwhelmed. They are learning to rely on someone else's strength to compensate for their own newly discovered weaknesses. By surviving these small humilities together, they find a common ground that didn't exist before. They are discovering that when you are stripped of everything else, what remains is the simple, powerful need for companionship. Habaek eventually understands that his time on Earth was not an accident or a punishment. It was a necessary education. The search for the stones was a journey designed to make him feel the weight of the lives he was meant to rule. This image illustrates the lesson. A throne is only as stable as the hands that support it. To lead a people, you must first understand what it feels like to be one of them, to know their hunger, their fears, and fleeting joys. For Soa, this journey provides a different kind of healing. By allowing herself to care for someone as complicated as Habaek, she breaks the cycle of her own cynicism. She finds that her human life, while short and often difficult, is enriched by the connections she chooses to make. The path to true authority and the path to a meaningful relationship are the same. Both require you to step down from your pedestal and acknowledge that you are incomplete on your own. The story of Habaek reflects a nary human truth. Real influence and lasting bonds are built on empathy. We find our greatest strength not when we are invincible, but when we are willing to let someone else see us as we are. Think about the walls you've built. Lowering those defenses is the only way to let someone else in, and it's often the only way to truly find your place in the world. If you enjoyed this look into the psychology behind the myth, consider subscribing to the channel. We have many more stories to explore together.